Greetings and welcome to the garden, but also the lab. I want to work on another build here, and I want to work on another one of my TV projects. But what I really want to try is painting it to see how well that's going to work. So I've got the big one here, and I got a box to try and paint it in. And I'm going to wait for the wind to die down just a little bit. Kind of bad condition for this, but I'm going to see what I can do in terms of painting this. And then we'll go inside and work on the circuit board that's going to go with this, which I'll show you momentarily. And we'll come back and see how well this came out. So here we go. I'm just going to YOLO the whole thing. I don't want to make it too thick. Now I did go looking for a color. I wanted to get kind of a darker brown initially, but in looking at this, I want this to be a sort of a matte color. I couldn't get matte. All I could find in darker brown was gloss locally. I suppose I could wait around for it. See if I can get the inside. That may be asking a bit much. I just want it to become somewhat uniform. There we go. Alright, now I'm going to put this inside where it can dry without worrying about wind blowing something into it, and we'll go take a look at the circuit board. Back in the lab, we've got a few things out here. This is the circuit board that's going to go in there, and this is a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Letter size in the US for all of the international viewers. This is a mock-up of this circuit board, and I used it. I'll actually, when I put all this up on my website, I think I'm going to put this up too, just so it's easy to kind of come up with the designs. And all I did was just some basic coloring in. So I've got yellow here, I've got orange here, I've got red around that, and then I got a couple of pinks up in the corners. And if you haven't figured it out, it's a sunset. So I'm going to try and do that, but then I had to dig out all of my LEDs. Well, not all of my LEDs, but I went through my LEDs and, okay, I got plenty of yellow, but that's the one I need the least of. And as far as orange, unfortunately, all I have for orange is some surface mount. And then for red, I've got a whole bunch of little things of red, so I'll probably just work my way through that. I thought maybe I'd have some orange here in my 3mm, but I don't have the 17 that I'm going to need for this. So I think I'm actually going to go to surface mount. That leaves all the resistors on the sides, and for that I think what I'm going to try to do is use my 5.1Ks, which I have a larger amount of. Recently bought a whole bunch of them, but I was trying to decide on exactly how much I needed, and at 5.1K, let's do some quick math here. If each of these is 2 volts, give or take, and there's 3 of them in each pixel, and I'm supplying 12 volts through the power connector here, then let's see. So 12 volts minus 3 times 2 volts basically is going to come out to 6 volts. So I have 6 volts to drop across a resistor. If I use a 5.1K, that's 6 volts divided by 5.1K is equal to, let's get the calculator, because I don't feel like doing it in my head right now, but it's going to come out close to a 10. 5.1, whoops, my mistake, 6 divided by 5100, and that is going to give me 1.176 times 10 to the negative third, or basically 1.176 milliamps. It's going to be very dim, but then a sunset is not super duper bright. So we'll try it with the 5.1s. If it's a total disaster, I might actually have enough LEDs here to do it again, although the surface mounts I actually bought for a different purpose. I can buy more of them. But you can kind of see, that's kind of where my plan is going. Oh, and I need to show you what's happened with the painted frame. And here it is. I got to handle it carefully because it's got a cure for 24 hours. But that's how it came out. I'm actually quite pleased with it. The only thing is, if I grab a flashlight, part of the reason why I was painting it was because this one here that I built recently was done in the same white material, but it was glowing. And I didn't want it to glow too much, especially for this particular one. So I decided to get some spray paint, as you saw, and you can see it's still kind of shining through. So that's where we are on this. I'm going to let this cure while I work on building this circuit board. So I think the first order of business is to try to put these resistors on the edges here, and then we'll get a few of the LEDs in just to make sure it's working, along with the power connector. So let me hit the resistors first. Alright folks, the grand experiment. My intention was to have the flux, and I've got my, I don't know how much I'm going to need there. Maybe I can zoom in and post, but I've got my little air gun here, and we're going to see if with some flux I can make that settle. Okay, I'm not sure how well that's going to come through. It does look like it's settled down on the... Well, no, it's still kind of not exactly settled. Let's turn on the soldering iron and try that again. The other problem with that, I'm having to switch back and forth because I don't want to blow a circuit here. The other problem is it turned out that my 5.1K resistors are all a larger size than what I planned for on the board, so I may have to go to a smaller size, and this one may end up just sitting there looking weird. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure that out. Let's see if I can't make that settle a little. There, that got it to go down, but that's not what I was looking for. Unfortunately, I need to go with the smaller versions of these and put these away. Okay, well, that was a good experiment, I guess, but one thing I'm learning is don't touch the circuit board right after you heat it up. And it didn't sit down exactly the way I was hoping for, so I probably need a better heat gun, but I think what I can do, and I'm going to give it one more try, is to put these down one by one, just tack them on with the solder, and then try to use the heat gun to neaten them up, and hope they don't all just blow away. Flood it with some flux, and see how that works. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I won't bore you with it, and I'll come back when I'm done. So I'm back, and I've decided to try to use one of these previous efforts as a light, just to show you what this been really trying to figure out how to get the exposure down to a point where you can see what's going on. So hopefully this won't readjust too much on me, but I need the power supply that's here. So let's plug in our power to this. This is just a cable that I hacked together. I got a little ahead, And I'm going to try to, wow, it is dark for me. I'm going to try to do this to where I can show you how far I went. And there, let me check my exposure here. Yep, that was pretty good. That is as far as I've gotten. I added in a bunch of orange LEDs because they were surface mount. I got all the resistors in, so that's a good thing. Now I need to add a little bit of light for myself, and we'll move on to the next couple of things as I add the studio lights back on. There we go. And like I said, I got a bunch of orange LEDs in there. You can't see the first couple of orange LEDs because these are all in like triangular pixels, if you will. There's 3 LEDs per pixel, and what you've got down below here is multiple pixels that they're cutting across. So anyway, the point is I need to put in the yellow, I need to put in the red, and I need to put in the power connector, but it's looking like I got all of these resistors on. And the trick to doing that, as crazy as it was for me, was using the tweezers, using the itty bitty little resistors. These are 0805 components here. In fact, actually, this very first one, I said, oh, wait a minute, I got this whole package of 5.1K, and I realized they're 1206s, not 0805s, which for the uninitiated is a lot bigger. It's still very tiny, but it's a lot bigger in that tiny scale. So that first one that I put on barely fit onto the pads that I designed it for. So in the future, what I might do is go back to the 1206s because they're easier to work with. The 0805s, I've got a whole bunch of different values of them, so I'll work my way through eventually. But when you're designing the circuit board, you can choose what size pads you want for the surface mount components, and that's what I did. And it also turns out that the 0805 LEDs fit perfectly into a 5mm LED footprint. So what I did was I put one blob of solder on one connection of the two, and then I was able to use the tweezers to kind of push it into that while I heated up that connection. That got it locked in. Then I was able to put a little bit of flux on there and be able to add another connection and be able to kind of move it around with the soldering iron. It was a little tricky. It's just going to take practice. And if you're trying to do something like this, it'll take some practice. I may release a version of this circuit board that involves regular through-hole resistors, but the problem is the limited amount of space that I have around the circuit board to put those resistors. So I'll try to figure that out at some point when I release all of these designs for other people to be able to try and replicate what I'm doing here. So more on that later. We'll get back to actually putting this together. So I'm going to put some yellow LEDs, and I've got a whole bunch of yellow LEDs, but which ones do I use? I got these, I got those, I got a bunch of them here. This is one of the things I have an abundance of. I think what I'm going to do, because I only need 5 of them, I still want to use, some of these are reclaimed LEDs that I put in one project and then decided I didn't really need that many yellow LEDs, or I picked a different LED, a different color. So that should be, that's 4 of them. The tricky part with these is that the leads are already cut. So I've got to double check that these are actually functional, which they should be, before I put them on. Now, see, that one's lighting up with a battery, so that's good. So I know that the bottom leg here is negative, which is what I need. Then I just realized I didn't power up my soldering iron before I started this. And why does that act like the hole is blocked? Nope, it's not. Alright, so there's that. Let me turn on the soldering iron. And I need a piece of tape. So what I've been doing for a lot of these is I'll grab regular electrical tape, or even sometimes blue painter's tape, because I happen to have some lying around, and I will put it on top of the component to hold it down. I've seen other people use blue tack. Big Clive has a whole rig if you're doing a whole bunch of them. But this is what I'm doing. Now I gotta locate which one did I put in. Should be that one there. Why don't I see it? There we go. Now grab some solder. Soldering iron is up and running. And if I got this right, I don't fill in the wrong holes. So there's got one. Now I can go back to the other side, put my finger on it, and try and make sure that this seats properly while I heat it up again. There we go. I can feel it seating, and that's again something that just takes practice. I put that on. Now I got 4 more of these. I'll put them on and I'll meet you on the other side. Okay, like I said, we're on the other side, and I got 5 of them in there. I got power set up here and my janky little plug. Let's see together whether this works. There we go. Oops, looks like we're missing a couple of... Oh, okay, yeah. I'm missing 4 of the orange LEDs, but that's because, again, there's only 2 out of the 3 for the pixel, and remember, these are all... each pixel is in series. It's basically 12 volt across 3 LEDs, but they can be different colors. So we've got yellow, we got orange, we got red coming up, and then we'll do some pink, and we'll be done. So I'm going to let go of that. I'm going to add a power connector now, because that'll just be that much safer instead of potentially shorting out the 12 volt power supply and having to throw away another brick. So I will get that set up and we'll be back in a moment. Okay, let's get rid of this little piece of solder that broke off while I was doing that. We'll try this again, feeling a little bit better about it. And voila, we have lights. Okay, let's add some red in there. Now I got a whole bunch of different reds. Let me get rid of my yellows. And I'll put this all away later, of course. Let's see, we've got those ready to go. We've got a couple of reds in here. Let's just finish off this package first. The interesting thing was running out of the orange LEDs, so note to self, put orange LEDs on my Amazon wish list where people can find it and order some up for me. If you like what you're seeing, that's one way you can help. There's also another list of ways you can help down in the description. Enough self-promotion there. Let's get this red LED on. Now with the longer legs, I don't worry about taping it down on the other side. And that didn't solder on. In a moment I'm going to have to bring in my magnifier just so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. It puts more light on the subject. Let me get my... I haven't had to do this yet. My Bino legs. Alright, that's got one of them. Now the next one I'm going to have to clear out because I accidentally put one of my orange LEDs on there. So let's see how easily I can do that. And if it gets complicated, we'll come back. Alright, add a little fresh solder to it. Get the solder sucker ready. You know, I tried a different one and I went back to this one. It's probably something else I could put. Nope. Picked up some, but not all of it. Ooh, that one's clear. That one's clear. Nice. Alright, let's get these reds in here. Or this one more red in here. Then you'll be able to see all of the orange LEDs that I put in off camera. And hopefully you'll start to see how this is forming an intended image. Now, because the power connector is right here, it made it so that this went in really wonky. So I'm just going to put my finger underneath it like I did before and heat up the connections and try and drop it down straight on there. That looks reasonably straight. Alright, we'll cut off some leads. And we'll add some power. And we'll see what this looks like. Now I should point out, I've got a mixture of surface mount and discrete through-hole components. But in the end, this is going to be behind a diffuser. So actually I have, where did I put the diffusion material? That's right over here. So I'm going to plug this in and let's see what it looks like under diffusion. Oop, one of the red LEDs did not light up. But now you can see what I'm saying. It's going to be kind of a mix of colors there. That's interesting. It almost looks like there's a red down at the bottom here. Alright, let's figure out what went wrong with that one red LED. Hopefully it wasn't a bum LED. Alright, doesn't appear to be bridged together. Did I put it in backwards? A little hard to tell. Maybe. Alright, let's move the magnifier down and take a good look. Where's, nope, the flat side's in the right spot. So let's get my battery. These are so useful for this. Just when you have a little problem, you can test it out and see. Is it a bum LED? Actually, I want the negative there. Oh, now the LED itself just lit up. A little hard to get it exactly right and hold it, but let's see if I can do that. To camera. But I did just see it. So either the resistor is not connected, which thankfully when I put all this together, I'm going to put it down here where you can actually, where I can focus on it. There are three LEDs for a quote-unquote pixel, and they are labeled. So this is actually the K, and so I need to look for RK, and here's RK way up over here. So that one I need to double check to make sure that that resistor is laying down properly. And that could be a problem. It does not look all that convincing. So let's give that a shot. Just kind of reflow it a bit. And then we can plug it back in and see if that was the problem. The other thing I can do, although it's a little bit sketchy, is I can plug this in, and while it's plugged in I can try, let's see if the LED decides to come on. No, not from that side. So it might not be the resistor. Interesting. What else could it be? It could be that one of these orange LEDs is not soldered on right. Bingo! That was the problem. So now we have all of this. Let me move the light back out of the way so you can see a little bit better. But there you go. We've got all of those. So now the next step is going to be to populate the rest of the red LEDs, and then we'll throw some pink in at the very end. You'll see why. And we'll be able to start assembling it. So I'll see you on the other side. Now that's all the red LEDs put in. Let's take another look at what this looks like. Hope that everything works. Okay, and if you're thinking that a couple of red LEDs on each corner are not lighting up, you're correct. That's because we've still got one more LED to put in on each corner there. That's the pink ones. Make it those. Now, I don't have everything in the same type, so we're going to go with some 3mm, which should fit the same footprint as the 5mm, which is why I use so much 5mm. This just gives me choices. So let's add this one in. Let's add this one in. There we go. A little piece of tape to hold it down, to keep it from falling out, really. And then we'll readjust in a moment. So this one will actually be that right there. So you can see I kind of colored it in pink. And another nice thing about this design is your LEDs don't have to be perfectly straight, because you kind of want the randomness to achieve the effect. But maybe I'm just being a little pedantic here in trying to keep it. Whoops. That is obviously crooked. I mean, obviously you want it to be straight enough that it's not interfering with the LED next to it, so that you can actually get them all in there. Other than that, that should be fine. Let's get another one. Put it on the other side. There we go. Doesn't have to be perfect. As long as it doesn't fall out while I'm in the middle of soldering. That's kind of a pain when that happens. And if you've built enough things with electronics, you've probably had that experience at least once. Just a component falling out while you're in the middle of soldering it. It means you then have to clear the holes in order to put it back in. And hope that in the process you haven't somehow destroyed the component itself. Wow, that is wonky. Okay, that's getting kind of hot. But it should work. Here, well, almost overcorrected. There we go. That's good enough. That is all the lights for this particular design. I can start putting some stuff away. Re-reveal my blue mat, which has collected more dust. Well, not so much dust as flux. Let's see. Ooh. Oh, that's right. That was another project. One of my stealth lights had a problem, so I had to pull out a couple of dead LEDs. There we go. Okay. That's looking decent. Let's put it behind the diffusing material, and you can kind of see what I'm going for here. It's a sunset. Although it kind of looks like Well, yeah, I'm picking up this here. I didn't really intend to do that, but yeah, I think that looks kind of good. So now the next step is going to be to get the case and put this in a case and cut some of that diffusion material, and I'll be right back, like right now. And let's try slipping this thing in and hope it all works with the components in it. Hope that I've designed the case to line up properly with the... Yep. Oh, wow. I guess I also considered setting back the power connector there. So this is what the case is going to look like without the diffusion material. I'm sorry about that. Tripped over my own tongue. And let's see if I can plug it in. There we go. Let's put the diffusion material roughly where it's going to go. And now we have our sunset. I'm liking that. I think that worked out pretty nicely. So let's cut some material and get it in there. So I'll pull this out. Now, part of the fun is I can use one of these circuit boards, and I had to make more than one. I can use one to trace out on the diffusion material. Shiny side down. Ooh, that doesn't look wonderful. Well, let's see what we can do. Let me get another one of those, and we'll see. Yeah, we can kind of hide that little goof there. I don't know what happened. I got something on the material. I don't know if I'll be able to clean it off, but what I can do is turn it this way, try and line it up to the corner there, trace it with a pencil. That should work. And now the fun part. How do I cut this? And why does it look cockeyed? I think that's just how I'm looking at it here. Interestingly, the pencil almost didn't want to draw on here, but a couple of different knives to try here. I am not a modeler, so this may or may not go well. I'm going to use the circuit board as a straight edge. Try and cut the material that direction. And then yep. Ooh, that's bending up the corners. That wasn't too smart now, was it? Those of you that do this regularly are screaming through the screen, and I apologize. Let's see if we can get reasonably close. And then let's just try and cut it, hopefully somewhat straight. One day I'll get this worked out, how to do this properly. But I have another idea now. Instead of this diffusion material, which might be harder for other people to come by, unless you happen to run by a bunch of dead LCD TVs, which is where I got this, a big sheet of it from like a 32-inch TV. Unless you happen to run into that stuff regularly, I think what we can do is actually print with this white resin material a bezel that will fit in here. I've been trying to work out how to do that. Trying to think it through. Okay, this doesn't want to go in because it's a little tight on the long dimension. So we'll cut off a little bit more of it. We'll eventually get close. Let's see how we're doing on the short dimension. Yep, it's a little tight on the short dimension. That's okay. I don't mind trimming off a little bit more rather than going too far the first time. Ooh, my cut went really crooked there. Keep in mind that there is a little bit of a lip inside here, so if you don't make a perfect cut, it's somewhat forgiving. There we go. Alright, that's in for diffusion material. I got to figure out how to secure that in there. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to get a little bit of light leakage right out of the corner there because I didn't do it very well. Oh wow, I did it really badly. Alright, let's see if we can cut 2 more of these. So I will start with this lined up to one edge. Draw a line here. Yeah, I do realize that the thickness of the lead actually plays into the fact that it's a little bit bigger. Okay, now that should leave me enough to do this. Wow, just enough to do this. So we'll just try 2 more times and see if we can get this to work. Alright, let's do the short dimensions first, because they should line up reasonably well. And we'll go for straightening this out a bit. Cutting off this side. And right down the middle. I haven't thrown away the first one because I might still be able to use it. Let's see, this is going to be a little bit too tight to fit in, so I've got to be really careful and not cutting too much off. A little too tight. I'm going to take that first failed one out. It's a little too tight this way, and that's where I got in trouble before. Shave just a hair off of it. Ooh, dropped right in. I think I can get away with that one. Now I got another, and the other question becomes, do I put shiny side towards the back in both cases, or let's see, is that going to fit in there? Nope, need to take off just a bit, or some other combination. Now the nice thing about 2 layers is if you make a mistake, you can kind of still get away with it. Ooh, that almost fits. Again, I got to take off just a hair. So I'll leave the shiny side towards the back. If I could get it to fit exactly, which I could do if I have it 3D printed. Whoops. Stuff falling all over the place while I try to do this. Let's see if that works. Kind of an ugly cut, but it fits. We're in. So now I got to put some kind of glue or something in there, but let's see, once assembled, what this is going to look like. Then I got a couple of screws I could put in there. See, the problem is if I do that, it just falls right out. Interesting. I got to come up with a solution to that. I have an idea. Let me try something real quick. I wonder if I can take this, wedge it in like that. I don't know if that's going to be the right size. Interesting. I'll keep it shiny on the inside. If I could get that to stay there, maybe with a little piece of tape. For that matter, could I just do the tape? This is the tape that I was using to keep the components from escaping. I'll just kind of put that in there loosely now and experiment a bit. But if that holds it in just for now, and then what I can do is try and put maybe a dab of super glue in each corner or something like that, then nope, well, it all fell apart. Okay, let me go get that super glue and I'll be right back and we'll give that a shot. You get to experience the live results here as I try to take the cap off of this. Yeah, I didn't think that was going to work too well. Fortunately, by the miracle of buying one package of 2, I've got some more super glue. Let's see if we can't make this work. And how am I gonna, yep. Is that how that's supposed to work? Screw it on and then it punctures it. That doesn't seem to be working too well. There has to be a way to puncture that cap. Ah, okay. You just screw it on. Been a little while since I've used super glue. So what we happen to have around, alright, that felt like it broke the seal, so let's see. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. Let's get a small piece of something to squeeze it onto so I don't mess everything up. Nope. I'm starting to think it didn't break the seal. I'm going to very carefully do this so I don't stick my fingers together. No, it broke the seal. That's one. And yeah, I think I have a little on my fingers now. There we go. Alright, we got that working. Try not to touch it. There, we'll stick one of our dead LEDs to it. Oop, it's kind of stringy. All right. Yeah, unfortunately, you can probably see that string in there. I'm not too happy about that, but now let's cap it real quick before we, I don't know, sometimes I think they make these tubes really small because after you use it one time, it's useless again. even though they'll say that you can cap it off and it'll be fine. I don't know. Planned obsolescence, conspiracy theory, who knows? Alright, I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes and we'll come back. Alright, that's got that pretty much taken care of. Let's put a couple of things away real quick here. And we've got this, seems to be holding. I'm not going to test it too much, but that means I can put this in here. Oh, gotta get it turned around the right way. And on top of that, if I've done everything right, I've got a couple of screws I can put in. These are the M2 or 2mm screws. They are really tiny, so it's hard to pull out just two of them. But for this size of project, I think two of them is fine just in these corners. Plus I've got the power connector kind of locking it in, so we're good there. Get this all put together and we'll be able to see what the final product looks like as I get my screwdriver and attempt to put these in. Like I said, attempt to put these in. They are tiny. Boy, my workspace is a mess right now. And then also the posts that you saw on the inside there, I'll put a render up so you can kind of see what the posts look like again while I'm doing this. Those are 1.9mm holes. They're not threaded because that's just more complex. And the idea is that these screws then go in, and this one looks like it went in crooked. They go in and do a little bit of displacement of the material and basically thread their own hole. So there we go. Now we've got this. Now we got to turn off some lights. Let's get this thing plugged in. And after I get it plugged in, I'll turn off more lights. Let's see what this looks like. Ooh, I kind of like that. Alright. Let's see if we can't change the exposure. And I can get a little more light out. Turn on a little more light. Now we're basically in the dark. And let's see if I can't get it to... I'm having a real problem with that. Maybe this camera just isn't capable of going to that low of a light. There we go. That's better. Now you have an idea what that looks like. That is nice and warm. I think the pink's a little brighter than I expected it to be. It almost looks like a flame, not a sunset. So maybe I shouldn't have put the pink in there. And maybe I should have had the red go a little bit more along the top there. Yeah, I knew that was going to screw up the exposure. But I will leave you with that. That is the finished product. I'm happy with it. Thank you so much for watching.